Everyone, how the hell are we doing today? If you're just finding this channel, Drew, alcoholic, addict, substance use disorder, did drugs way too much, burned his life to the ground, swore he'd never do it again. Hours later, he's doing the same thing. Repetitive cycle on the crazy merry-go-round. It goes from getting really messed up and burning everything to the ground to deciding I need help, to going to detox, to going to treatment, getting in treatment, making a bunch of promises, writing a bunch of letters, doing a bunch of push-ups, doing a bunch of workouts, eating a bunch of food, gaining some weight back, getting some sanity, some mental clarity, starting to feel better, starting to get overconfident, starting to feel that I will never, ever, ever go back to using drugs. I don't really find a God. I don't really have a recovery program. I don't get a sponsor or mentor. I don't make recovery a priority. I don't find different things to fill my time with. I don't focus on routine. I don't focus on consistency, open-mindedness, willingness, and I think that I'll be able to solve addiction on my own. I start to think that I overreacted. After thinking that I overreacted, I start to slack. I start to believe that I did enough work in treatment, that I will figure this out on my own. I'm an adult. I'm a genuinely, decently smart guy, I guess. I can figure this out. And what starts to happen is I start to slack. I start to get uncomfortable. I start to wake up to the realities of my life. I start to realize that I am behind. Failed out of school, out of college, have felonies on my record. Just feel behind, have debt, have a bunch of stuff I have to pay for because of my addiction, a bunch of wreckage, a bunch of relationships that I have created strain in, a bunch of lies that I have told, and I start to wake up to that. And slowly but surely, I start to get wound very tight emotionally, mentally, physically, spiritually. I start to feel off. I start to feel bad for myself. I start to become a victim. The world has screwed me over. People haven't treated me right. I haven't got lucky enough. I start to have all these old core beliefs that start to surface. I start to tell myself a bunch of negative talk that is reinforced by a bunch of my experiences and failures I've had throughout addiction. And all of a sudden, I make the supreme sacrifice, which for a person like me is picking up a drink or a drug. I swear that I'm only going to have a couple. I tell myself that this time it's going to be different. I'm going to drink like a normal drinker, even though I have never drank like a normal drinker. I somehow convince myself of that. I tell myself that this time I'm going to be a little bit more responsible. I'm going to make better choices, surround myself with better people. I do none of those, and I find myself right back to square one. A lot of pain, a lot of hurt, a lot of shame, a lot of fear, a lot of regret, and I start the cycle over again, and suddenly I need help. Go back to detox treatment, and I repeat that cycle for about 14 years, give or take. Of course, you can add in a meth and heroin run for 3 years. In between all that, most of the time, you could throw Xanax in there. Then you could say that I put the hard stuff down and I just abuse alcohol and weed, and eventually it turns to pills, and it's just a continuous cycle over and over and over again. What I fail to realize is I'm the type of person that when I pick one substance up, it doesn't matter what it is, I will find a way to focus solely on that. Other things in life just aren't exciting after I have the dopamine rush of a lot of these substances, and I will continue to abuse them, and I basically have no defense against it. Once I set the terrible cycle in motion, once I get out of rehab and I think that I've got this and I can, stay sober and maintain sobriety on my own, I fall into a trap, and I do the same thing over until I just could not take it anymore. During COVID, I overdosed on fentanyl. I'm only alive today because of CPR that my dad gave me. I was Narcaned multiple times. I was revived, and that was when I realized something's got to change here. Either something's going to change or this is going to kill me, or at the very best case, I'm just going to stay in this cycle that I've been in for years. And the thing that sucks is I think a lot of people find themselves in this cycle. And the thing was, I didn't know what was going on with me. See, I was always trying to treat the wrong things. I was always focused on anxiety. I was always focused on depression. I was always focused on trying to feel good all the time. And I'm willing to, I'll say that I have anything wrong with me mentally, but I just refuse to figure out that I can't use substances. Maybe some people can. I'm not here to tell anyone you shouldn't drink, you should be sober, it's the only way, you have to do what I did to stay sober. I'm not saying any of that. I'm just saying for me personally, I had to get to the point where I understood what cycle I was actually in. And the thing for me too, I had to realize that for me personally, it was never going to change. Never. There is no magic elixir for someone that suffers from substance use disorder or addiction, whatever you want to call it. It doesn't matter. For me, it's all the same thing. It's the same problem. I use different things essentially for the same reason, because I get so uncomfortable sober. And I feel like I can tackle sobriety on my own. And what happens is I just fail over and over and over again. And it wasn't until I finally made it a priority. I had to get away from a lot of things I was doing. I had to get away from a lot of people and places that I was going to. And I also had to start changing my mindset on stuff. And I had to finally have routine, because in addiction, and part of what was so exciting about it, especially when you get to the point where you're homeless and everything's gone, you feel like it's this weird sense of freedom, because I was so used to not having to be anywhere. And I was always having to just restart my life. And the thing is that got old. And I realized that the true freedom is actually in getting sober. And a lot of times we don't even know what we're capable of. We don't even know the person that we really are. If we've been drinking and using for so many years, we don't even understand what we're capable of. I transitioned into recovery, and I went from this person that just could not show up, could not keep my word for anything. I would lie when the truth was just so blatantly obvious and would serve me better. And I just continued with this facade that no one knew how bad off I was. And the reality was everyone knew how bad I was. I hope if you're tuning in, I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to hear what's going on with you. What works for you? How are you able to maintain sobriety? What's recovery been like for you? Can you relate to anything that I went through? I made a video not too long ago about meth addiction. And I've got some cool comments from that. And it seems that there's a lot of people that have been through it. It's crazy, man. I think that's kind of the best part about this whole process is a lot of us go from being these people that feel like we are isolated and alone, and there's no one else that can relate to what we have to say. Because a lot of times we're talking to friends and family that aren't dealing with addiction. And we just look crazy to them. And it's hard to explain what's really going on with us. All of a sudden we link up with some people that have been through it. And these things that we were so embarrassed to talk about and so ashamed to talk about, well, you start saying this stuff in front of a crowd that understands, someone who's been through it. And they're nodding their head. And you're like, where have these people been all my life? I've been trying to explain for 14 years what the hell is going on with me and the way I feel and why I get out of rehab and I have a drink in hand the next day, and people are looking at me going, dude, didn't you ask to go into rehab? Weren't you like begging to get in there? And you like didn't have insurance and you're calling these places and, oh, let me in. And I swear I'll do anything. I'll do anything to get in there. Suddenly I get in there and I get out and I overreacted. It's not a big deal. Psycho's crazy, man. It's crazy. But there's one thing I figured out in recovery is that you're not alone. You are not alone. Whatever you think you are, whatever reason you think you're so unique or a lot of times we tell ourselves these things, these reasons why we're never going to be able to get sober. And we come up with these just unique things that we tell ourselves. We almost hold it against ourselves, like, oh, well, they can get sober because they could be more spiritual than me. Or, oh, well, they can get sober because, I don't know, I'm just lazy and it's just not going to work for me. And I just have bad luck. And all these things, I just get the shit end of the stick. And there's just no way they can get sober, but I'm just too far gone. No, see, I'm too far gone. See, they were drinking and I've been doing hard stuff and they don't understand. It's so different. And you come into recovery, you start telling your story and you realize some things are unique, but a lot of it's not. All these things that we hold against ourselves as being unique in the big scheme of things. Once you get around people that have been through addiction, you start talking about it. It's like half the room's been through that shit. Which is a good thing. It's not a bad thing. I'm not saying you're not unique in a negative connotation. I'm saying there's good news for you. If there's something that you are holding against yourself as unique as to a reason why you're never going to be able to get sober, you're probably not unique, man. You'll find someone in the rooms of recovery that's been exactly through what you're going through. Or a church, if you go to church, or some type of support group, online meetings, in-person meetings, whatever, any type of support group, whatever you do to maintain some type of community. And I think that's something that is absolutely paramount. We can't do it ourselves. I couldn't do it myself. When I talk about the whole merry-go-round and the cycle, that was one thing that was consistent throughout that whole time, is I always thought that I somehow would be able to turn things around by myself. And I couldn't. And we hear it all the time. There's a TED Talks that talks about community, and they were doing these tests with the rats, and they were giving the rats drugs, and they literally would just, it was in their like water thing, and they'd go up to it, and the second they tried it, I think it was cocaine, they did opiates, I forget exactly what it was, but basically once they tried the stuff and they found out, they put two and two together that, hey, I can go up to this water bottle and I started drinking it and I feel good. They just continued to do that, or like hit a button, whatever it was. Whatever prompted the drugs coming into their system, they just did over and over and over again. And they had nothing in that cage but those drugs to go to. And then they talk about where they started to, all of a sudden they got the wheel, and the mouse or rat can run around on the wheel. And next thing you know, they got the little houses, and they got like double-decker different stories. And then they started putting friend rats in there. And they said all of a sudden things started to change. They weren't just reaching for the drugs and the water or the button. And they say that that's because of community. And that's something, there's a lot of various ways that people start to turn their life around after addiction, but I talk about this a lot, but that's one thing that's pretty much consistent wherever you go. Pick any religion, any mode of recovery, any way of finding motivation and having a positive mindset and turning your life around and rebuilding and overcoming something like divorce or losing a job or grieving and losing a loved one or going through addiction, alcoholism. It's one thing everyone says consistently. Any psychiatrist, any counselor, any group leader, anyone who is involved in recovery is going to tell you have to have your tribe. You absolutely have to. You have to have a sense of community. Why is that? I think it's because addiction is so isolating. And sometimes it doesn't seem like that, because you could have someone who's successful in pretty much 90% of what's going on in their life, except for the 10% of addiction that is literally everything on the outside looks great. They look like they're killing it in life. They've got a wife, kids, house, promising career, multiple cars. They get to go on vacations. They're doing really everything on the outside. They've got degrees. Maybe they've wrote a book. They've started their own company. Very successful, 40 employees, 10 employees, whatever the case is. Very self-supporting. A lot of times even they are isolated, not physically, but when you talk to them eventually, and they're towards the end of their alcoholism or whatever they're dealing with, you really sit them down when no one else is around, patient confidentiality, just them and the therapist or whoever they're talking to. And they're going to tell you, look, it looks like everything's good in my life, but because of this freaking alcoholism or because of this addiction, I feel insanely lonely. That's what happens in the end to everyone. Even if you're not lonely physically, you will eventually feel like it mentally and emotionally. You will. Many of us are the other sense of lonely, where we've just pushed everyone away and gotten fights with everyone and lied to everyone, and they just can't take it anymore. It's too painful. They have to distance themselves. But I think that's where kind of community comes in as that polar opposite, that contrary action, that look, we've been trying to figure this out on our own for so many years, and we're not doing it anymore. And it helps to have people that are going through the exact same thing. Maybe they've been sober a little bit longer than you, and they could just someone you can lean on. And you don't have to do exactly what they do to stay sober. Many times we do, because we're asking them for advice and we're looking for suggestions, and maybe we're in the same type of recovery program. But at least you have someone to lean on. And a lot of times I feel like our head, or at least mine did, it tells me, for some reason, it just tries to get me isolated. It tells me to try and do everything on my own, tells me to try and get sober on my own, try to maintain sobriety on my own. And I almost wonder if that's the disease side of things, trying to cut me off from things. See, and early on, it was pretty easy to cut me off. All you had to say was, oh man, your future's not looking good. You got too many things you're going to have to deal with in this life to get things on track. You might as well go back to those drugs. Those are going to make you feel better now. Recovery is going to make you feel better a long time, but the drugs, the temporary fix, is going to make you feel great now. It was pretty easy to cut me off from things, isolate me, and turn me back to another drink. Whereas today, it would have to really start cutting away at things for a while and kind of fly undetected enough to then get me isolated enough to where I go, oh, that might be a good idea again. But I just wanted to get on here. I just wanted to make a quick video real quick. I've been getting everything ready, starting to do some in-person stuff now. So I've been testing out equipment and figuring out this YouTube stuff. I didn't put a lot of effort into it for a while. I used to just load things onto YouTube from Spotify, but now I'm trying to really figure this out. And it's not easy, man. It's hard to get views on here. It's hard to compete with all the different thumbnails and titles and tags and SEO and all types of stuff. But I will say this, it's a lot of fun. It's been a huge kind of learning curve throughout the way, but I'm excited. We got a bunch of episodes scheduled for the next couple months. Just made a few different episodes with different guests. Check that out if you guys get some time. If you like what you hear, go ahead and see the sign. Subscribe. And don't forget to comment. Let me know where you guys are at in your journey. If there's anything you can relate to, what's helping you stay sober today? What were your challenges in early sobriety? Do you deal with the isolation? How important is it for community for you in your recovery today and maintaining that new lifestyle? Do you think community is one of the number one things that we need? What mode of recovery are you doing to stay sober on a daily basis? Do you go to church? Do you do counseling? Do you go on runs? Do you work out? What is it that you do? I love to hear what other people are up to, and I like to try different things, and I think it's a constant journey of kind of sharpening our tools and adding things into our routine and just always kind of testing different stuff out. At least for a little bit, trial by error, and seeing if it's something that we like. And I think we're always growing and always learning in this process. So thanks for checking it out, guys. Don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe. Appreciate you.